it back into you. That's obviously a medical procedure. So where are these, surely, credible medical facilities aren't doing this practice. So where is it happening?
No.
And what are the conditions like?
So I've seen a fair few videos online, and they tend to be, again, sorry, your neck of the woods. But where they tend to be done, the kind of the places seem to be fairly. They tend to be fairly good-looking establishments. They look fairly clean. They look like real healthcare places where you get stuff done. But the fact is, they're giving you a load of quackery.
Steve, how can that be legal over here? How can they pump your blood out, mix it with something toxic, and then pump it back into you?
I don't think a lot of it is. I mean, these alternative things are not sanctioned. I mean, they're not. I mean, I don't see how they are considered to be anything but malpractice if a licensed physician actually does it.
I mean, it's happening though. I mean, I've seen whenever I was looking these things up, there are ads of places. It's kind of like, to me. Did you guys hear about that? They used to be a plastic surgeon, and something happened with their license, and they set up like a side practice, and they were giving women implants, like ass implants, but with caulk, like you would use for tile, and it wound up killing a woman. But they were literally injecting caulk into people's asses as ass implants, and something happened where it ruptured or something like that, and it killed the woman. But people sign up for this stuff. Like this person willingly went into an agreement where this was going to take place. They met in a hotel room. The doctor would they weren't a doctor then, but they would inject them with these caulk shots, and it eventually killed the woman. But they went into it knowing that this was going to be the case. I can't grasp that. I really can't.
Well, you say that, but I know that Botox is fairly popular among some people, and I've been down the pub with some of my friends, and I've heard the conversation of, I'd have it done on the cheap though. If my mate can come around and inject me with this with this toxin for a couple of quid, I'd be up for that. And you stand back and you think, that's actually quite dangerous.
Botox is dangerous?
Yeah, Botox is a paralytic. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I didn't know that.
You're basically paralyzing something. That's, I mean, I wouldn't want anybody who's not. I would want anybody who's licensed to give me Botox. But why would you want somebody who's not even a real medical professional putting a paralytic in you? I don't see the appeal. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
see,
and they were being deadly serious down the pub. They were saying that they would go for it if it was cheaper than going to like James Cook Hospital or whatever.
That's testosterone's the same way nowadays too. The underground market for testosterone. People will get prescriptions to either the gel kind that it's topical, or the shots, and that's a huge black market now. People, guys are trying like crazy to get these testosterone things, and there's no kind of regulation with how much you're supposed to take, how often you're supposed to cycle it, everything that goes on with testosterone, because it's not something that you can just take continuously. You have to cycle that stuff through, and none of this stuff is being passed down. So you're getting guys who are their hormones are all out of whack, so they're raged out all the time. It's just causing all kind of mess because no one is there to regulate the dosage. And that to me is another big issue with these things. When we get to the turpentine, we'll especially talk about that, but where that comes into play, how they're telling all these people that are following them, this is how much you're supposed to take, this is how often you're supposed to take it. Cause it's not the same for everybody. It can't be. Yeah.
And as people pointed out in the live chat, Botox is derived from botulism. It's the same toxin from the whatever the bacteria is that makes botulism. I don't remember the name of it, botulinum, or I don't know. But they get that neurotoxin from that, and it's the same thing found in botulism. Why would you want to inject that? People go out of the way not to get botulism. That was like bad back in the day. Canning, people would get botulism from improper canning. It could kill you.
So you can look surprised all the time, obviously, Steve.
You just kind of paralyze your entire face.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts on the underground markets like this, or have you seen any of that with any other kind of like weird things like caulk or
Cock in the ass.
There was a thing in the there was a weird thing in the UK where it wasn't cork. It was silicon for. It was the same thing like a silicon. You can get silicon gun, and I know there was a huge thing about people physically injecting that into themselves, and it being a nightmare to remove, and people becoming very sick and interestingly shaped after a while. But I don't know. I tend the kind of I just generally find this stuff online. I've not really seen that much of it in real life, to be honest with you. I think I'm fairly fortunate. And I think now all my friends and family know that if they mention anything like this to me and it's a bit dodge, they'll get like an eyebrow raised from me and a bit of a lecture and a finger wag.
A wag of the finger. Nice. We've got Steve and I always say this when we have people like you come on. We've got about 20 minutes left, and the time just flies by when we have people like you. It just seems like it goes by so quick. When we have things that are a little bit more in the woo, or people who are trying to defend these, it seems like it just drags on. But there's one that I want to make sure we get in really quick, and then if we have time, we'll get the other two in. But we're gonna go, and Dave, you don't have to pull up the card for this because they've seen Danny Glass so many times. But the turpentine and the borax one, I think, is just this one to me is the dumbest. It's one of the most dangerous, and it's seemingly increasing because there are celebrities now that are doing turpentine. I need to figure out the girl's name, but there's an actress now that has admitted that she incorporates turpentine in her daily routine, and to me that's just
yeah, it's a bit nuts. Turpentine therapy. Yeah, I made a video about it about a month ago, and I've only really found out about it about 2 months ago. The idea that you drink this paint thinner, paint stripper solvent. And it will somehow, like chili juice, cure you of all your parasites and candida, which are interchangeable. Apparently, it's another one where it's another panacea. It's another magical bullet, and this one is even more bizarre. The idea is that you consume it on 3 sugar cubes. You put in a teaspoon. Which most of them don't do. What they do is they line up the sugar cubes and then they get a pipette and they put turpentine on it until the bottom cube is saturated, and then they eat it. So they could even overdose by their own standards. And the idea is that the sugar draws out the parasites from your body, so in your arms and in your fingers, into your stomach, where it's like, oh no, I thought there was only sugar here, but turns out there's turpentine. Bleh, I'm dead. And then you give it the choice, which is either die in your stomach of turpentine or get shat out. Yeah, I know I'm laughing, but
this is not real.
It's real. It's pretty awful, and it all again. It's these things are almost cookie cutter, copy and paste. So it's very similar to jelly juice. We have someone who had this magical panacea. She found it out. It had like a distant origin, and it can cure everything. And like with jelly juice, pain is healing, because the pain that you feel when you consume turpentine is not your body having an adverse reaction to consuming paint stripper. It's the candida and parasites dying off, lysing inside of you, and then they're releasing toxins, which is bad for your health. That's their theory.
I just
pain
can't.
is actually having listened to that. That's the pain. People thinking that makes
it's
sense.
It's hard for me to just believe that there are people that buy this. I mean, just the thought of drinking turpentine, like when you say that to a normally rational thinking individual, they're going to look at you like they're crazy. They're not even going to entertain that possibility. Like that's not even an option.
So they've got to change it. They've got to tweak it from a marketing point of view. So it's not turpentine. It's gum something of turpentine. Which exactly the same. And it's all natural. So as long as you don't say it's turpentine, you can get down the store. Even though the woman who originally came up with it actually got it from a hardware shop originally. It's gum turpentine, which is all natural. It's collected by the topless nuns of wherever, and it's all spin. And not only that, they use what people know. People know not to drink paint thinner, but they use that as an advantage. They use it as part of the conspiracy. So this idea that you shouldn't drink it, that's the pharmaceutical companies who don't want you to know that. That's all lies. No, it's fine. You totally drink it. The warning labels that come on all the stuff, that's bollocks. Did you see Danny Glass's explanation to why they have warning labels on turpentine bottles, including the gum one that he's selling?
No, I have not heard this.
So you've got to watch it. He basically says, and this is not going to make any sense, I'm just going to warn you. He says they have to put it on there so they don't get sued. They're actually fine with you drinking it. They just don't want to get sued. And you're like, well, how does that make sense? Why would they be open to getting sued if this stuff's going to kill you, Danny? You twat.
Oh, that's a good word for him, twat. So
I'm not a fan of Danny at all.
Do they just call it a gum because it's a type of tree resin? Because that's where they get a lot of these spirits from, is distillation of tree sap, right? Or some resin, some type of resin. So they're just calling that a gum, and they're thinking that somehow makes it, I don't know, organic or more organic, or somehow magically not something you want to put in your system. Because I don't see how changing that to gum makes any bit of difference to these people.
Well, I can see that, because stuff that's all natural, it can't possibly be bad for you, right? And stuff that comes from a tree, everyone loves trees.
Probably bad for you. It's natural.
Bears are bad for you. They're natural. I'm not a fan of them.
That's a good point.
It's another crazy one, and it's one that is also makes no sense. You briefly talked about dosing before and how people could, get the wrong dosage with certain things, with jelly juice and what have you. Turpentine therapy is a very bad one, because the woman who came up with it says that the dose of 1 teaspoon is fine if you're between 240 pounds, so a rather large adult, and 40 pounds, so a child. They will have the same dose. And I think I looked up. In the past, we've had examples of children dying consuming as little as 15 mils. And a tablespoon is 5 mils, but they recommend, depending on who you listen to, that you drink it either every day or 4 times every week for so many months. So exposing a child to that amount, may potentially kill them. And one thing that I people often forget is they often like to talk in numbers with regarding death, figures of how many people die. Just because a certain number of people didn't die doesn't mean this stuff isn't dangerous, doesn't mean that this isn't going to have a massive negative effect on someone's health, doesn't mean that, that it's not damaging them. Drinking turpentine, exposing yourself to turpentine will have prolonged negative effects. And just because these Muppets have survived so long doing it doesn't necessarily mean that if you've got God knows what's wrong with you, that you are going to be the same.
The celebrity I was talking about is Tiffany Haddish. She's been in the movies Nobody's Fool, Girls Trip, Night School. She hosted Saturday Night Live about a month and a half ago. It's very fun. She's very funny. She's very funny. And I think you're right when you say that our neck of the woods, our pond, for some reason, our country is just so, we fall for these things for some reason at an alarming rate. I can't figure out why that's the case. And it just seems like we get so entrenched.
I think you guys tend to have different things. We like I said, in the UK, in Ireland, we had a few years ago, MMS was huge, which it wasn't so big over in America. And also we had, the whole anti-vax movement came from the UK. Apologies for that, by the way. So we have our own little niche things over here.
Speaking of anti-vax, I guess this will be the one we wrap up on, but there was a article that came out, let me see if I can find it today, and I live in North Carolina, so when I saw this headline, it kind of was a little bit alarming, but from the Washington Times, an anti-vaccination stronghold excuse me, in North Carolina is hit with the state's worst chickenpox outbreak in 2 decades.